Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show. I'm Atiq Ahmed Bhatti, a fourth generation homeopath with over 25 years of professional experience and practice in this field of healing. The Homeopathy Health Show is the online voice of homeopathy around the world, promoting and raising awareness of this truly unique system of healing, which is suitable for all ages, young and old. Every week I invite guests from the world of homeopathy to come and share their experiences, their work, offer insights, and essentially talk all things homeopathy. Why not visit www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast button to listen to the latest episodes. So let's begin today's show here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio. Now, I'm delighted to welcome Krista Rivet as my guest for today's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show, all the way from Buffalo in New York. Now, after becoming frustrated with chasing symptoms and never getting any answers for her son's chronic health issues, Krista discovered homeopathy, and that proved life-changing not only for her son, but herself. And subsequently, she went on to study and graduate with the Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine. Krista is a certified classical homeopath and also a member of the North American Society of Homeopaths. Krista is a true ambassador for all things homeopathy, much like myself actually, and it's actually something that all homeopaths indeed share, which is that we end up becoming ambassadors for promoting the benefits of homeopathy, and what a wonderful place to be indeed. Krista, it's such a delight to welcome you to the podcast. Thank you so very much.
Oh, well, thank you. And it's such an honor to be here and to be asked with all your exciting guests. I'm very honored to be included.
It's so lovely, honestly. I know we've been trying to sort of connect for a while, and just like myself, of course, you're very, very busy. But hey, finally, we've done it. Great.
Yes.
Now, you have a very interesting journey, Krista, to homeopathy itself, and you mention about your son's chronic health issues. So do share this journey to healing and, your, I suppose, finding homeopathy as a result.
Yeah. And I feel a lot of homeopaths, the ones I've talked to anyway, we all have similar stories. Usually it's something like that has brought us, or it's found us. Like truly, I feel we're pulled into it. But yeah, I mean, even from a little girl before I had children, just growing up, I always thought so much deeper and felt like just different and always questioned and very curious, and always had a passion for medicine, health, body, nutrition. Really intended to go to medical school or pharmacy school, like something in that, or nutrition. So I studied an undergrad in psychology. It's always been really passionate, always curious with that. And so, yeah, I did my undergrad and then just paused for a little bit, not knowing really what I wanted to do. And really it pulled it all together. And then fast forward, my husband used to play hockey. So I kind of paused to travel with him and professional hockey. And then we had started to have children. And my second born, I have 4 children, he's now 19. But when he was like 2, 3, 4, that whole chronic ear infection, I hear it so often now being a homeopath and working with moms, just chronic fluid in his ears, chronic congestion, antibiotic. And really, I kept questioning, why? Why is his body, why is it developing all this fluid? What is going, because my daughter, who was 18 months older, had nothing. So clearly right away, I started thinking like a homeopath, but had no idea. I've never heard of homeopathy. I didn't know anything about it. But that was my mindset back then. And so I kept questioning and did what I was told, but it felt so sick. I felt such conflict inside. So that alone, and I suffered from health anxiety, my own things. So it was just such a big, at the time I didn't know. Now looking back, it's all, kind of led me to where I am. But so, yeah, because of him, we moved around a few times. And then finally, I honestly, I don't remember how I found a homeopath, but I started Googling things and found a homeopath near me, Joette Calabrese, which I'm sure you know, probably maybe know of her. She was my first homeopath, and she's from Buffalo originally. And so that was life-changing. So I brought him to her, and she asked all these questions, like, what does he like? And do you like chocolate? And this and that. I'm like, what are you doing? What does this have to do with anything? And of course, now it all makes sense. But anyway, she prescribed a remedy. It was chamomilla. So that was the first experience because he had MRSA infections as well. It was just like a whole mess of stuff. And it was in his ear. And so I gave the one dose and I could not believe the change in his demeanor, his mood, because as you know, the chamomilla, he completely changed. And then the next morning, his ear was better. He was happy. I was like, wow, I have to learn more. And so that was the beginning of it all because we were told, we had his adenoids out, he had tubes in his ears all before this. And then he had to be on like special nose stuff because it was MRSA, antibiotic, eardrops. And I didn't do any of that. Of course, I'm terrified and panicked because, of course, I don't want to do something, as a mom, not knowing what I'm doing. You want to do what's best for your child. But I didn't do any of that. We went for the follow-up and the doctor, the specialist ENT was like, wow, it looks great. It cleared up beautifully. And that was my turning point. So then I was like, I am going to study this. And so off I went, and it took me a long time. So just because then I went on to have two more children. So, but here I am. So that was really the beginning of what opened the door for me. It just answered. It made so much sense. Like it just makes so much sense the way I thought.
It's amazing, isn't it, that you see your child suffering and no parent wants to, of course, see a child suffering. And sometimes you get caught up with, oh, it must be only antibiotics that are going to fix this because of the way we've all grown up in modern times. And then you mentioned the fact that asking all these questions, which, initially don't make any sense whatsoever. Do you like playing outdoors? Do you like playing indoors? What's your favorite food? And how do you feel at this time? And all these questions, and they can sometimes feel really strange, can't they? Because you think, how is this possibly related? And yet that's the picture, isn't it? That's the signature of that remedy. What the homeopath is doing is basically creating a piece of art which is unique to that child by asking certain questions, and they're drawing away of where the lines are. I don't mean this literally, of course, to the listeners. I mean during her consultation. But it is amazing, isn't it? The signatures of these remedies and the power of healing.
It is. And and it just made so much sense again, because I'd ask like, why is his body making the fluid? And that's not, they're like, the answer I got, which I'll never forget, was that's the $1 million question. That was his response to me because they don't know. And granted, they're, great, their studies and they're great. He was so fantastic, but again, that's just exactly what they're taught and what to train and what to treat. And unfortunately, that's not, really the issue. That's the result, as we know. So it just made so much sense to go deeper. And it does. It connects the dots, and it really is an art. I like you use that word because it really is like, as much as there's so much science, it's such an art, a skill, and really doing this connection and assessing as a whole.
Yeah, it is amazing because every homeopath is different and unique. We follow the same principles, of course, but the beauty of homeopathy is it's very adaptable and very versatile. And that, I find, Krista, that's such a huge, massive plus point, because it just shows you how universal this is and how applicable it can be to each individual.
Yeah, you're right. And just to think how, we are so different as practitioners, which again, expresses how individual this medicine is, and this art and the science. And how different we all can practice so differently.
So from chamomilla, you went to study homeopathy from your experience of chamomilla. And they both begin with C. Hey, there's observation for you. The Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine. So how was that? How was that journey? How was studying and learning?
Well, it took me a long time. So I laugh now because when I started, nothing was online. Like it was online, but not like it is now. So I actually got books mailed to me, binders with papers. And so that's how long I'm dating myself now. But because he was only about 5 or 6 and now he is 19. But it took me, it's a 3-year program, but it took me probably about 6 because fortunately you could do it at your own pace. And, and I had at the time, my third one was born, and he was 9 months when my other son was like 4 and 5. So as you can imagine, it was tough, but I'm so passionate that I just could not get enough. So that school was so fantastic. It's in Toronto. And so they offered the virtual, and everything was, like cases. I was able to do that. And it was great. It was such a great experience, and they were so accommodating, and it was wonderful.
It was one of the 4-year courses that you did?
It's a 3-year. You can do, they offer other programs, but it was a 3-year to be fully, to get your diploma.
And post graduation, how did you actually get into seeing patients and helping people?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure like most of us as we're learning, and even, I treat my family and friends all along. And then it was probably it's been about almost 7 years now that I've been officially, practicing as a business, as a practitioner. It just kind of came, again, just trusting, which again, I feel homeopathy is such a way of life. Like it really has taught. Now, understanding homeopathy, it allowed me to surrender so much and trust the process, trust myself, and just things just come together. And it's just worked out beautifully when it was supposed to happen. And just started taking clients. And of course, those first couple of years, I think, you can be doubting yourself and what am I doing? Who am I to do this? And then, you're seeing, and then it just kind of exploded. And I think that the fascinating part is the more I connected to myself and centered into myself and trusted myself, my practice just blew up. So that power of what you're being and who you are, and that connection really does ripple out there, and you attract, I think, the people that you're meant to attract. And it's such a beautiful thing, because now I primarily see women and children, and just being a mom, a woman with children, it's just, I just feel I've lived it, done it, and I just can really resonate, and I feel they resonate, and I just really love it now. And so it's going great. So it just kind of organically again, and through workshops and my own, like I had mentioned, I felt like I did feel a lot of health anxiety growing up, and my own, anxieties. So that really, all these lessons, like I feel everything comes to us as a lesson. And even certain clients that come to me are just there to really show me stuff about myself. So it's really been profound how much I've grown, as much as I'm affecting all these other people. It's just been such a great journey.
As you were saying that, I was just thinking of gratitude and the word, or being grateful, that when you are able to, when we are in a position as homeopaths to help people, to become a shoulder for them, and a means of support, it's also a time to express gratitude, because there is so much suffering out there, isn't there? People are going through, I mean, for want of a better word, people are going through hell, aren't they, and back, It's so sometimes one can become very overwhelmed by seeing the journey that someone has had as far as their health issues, and this is mental, emotional health and imbalances, and just basically what life has been for them. And yet here they are asking for help. And that journey is very much a journey of togetherness. It's not just here you go and I will see you. It's never like that, is it? And that's a really beautiful thing, right?
It's amazing, because as much as I'm helping them, or they're feeling that, they're helping me grow. And I feel everyone does come to your life. And absolutely, it's such a beautiful relationship. And I encourage that in my clients. So again, I get so many emails, and it is so beautiful to hear, like, thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space. Because that's really, we're not here to say, here, I know more than you. I know best. Take this. It's like, I'm here to understand, to listen, to, match the remedy, to help support you. And then you are off you go, but yet I'm here to support. And I want you to tell me, like, I encourage them to be like, if I'm telling you to take it once a week, or you feel this, like, please don't take it and let me know. I've had many clients step into that and be like, I feel like I could just go longer, or I think I need it every 3 days. And I'm like, that's amazing. Or their child can a lot, especially with children on the spectrum, I feel like just know, and they'll grab a remedy and ask for it. And I just trust that and encourage that. I think that power, again, which it's kind of ironic in a sense that that's what homeopathy is doing, is connecting us back to that voice inside, that inner knowing, to be able to discern what is best for us. And that's really my passion, is to empower people, women and, moms, to step into that, to take ownership of themselves and their family. Because it's just, I've seen it. And with what I went through with my son, and even my third son, who's now 15, which I don't think I did mention to you, he was diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer when he was 6, Ewing sarcoma. So that, again, that as much as my older son led the way, that my second son was such a big teacher with what that brought, because that was on the tip of my health anxiety and fear. And you can imagine hearing this diagnosis of your 6-year-old, it was like nothing else. And even just thinking about it, it kind of stirs up that that memory and what I felt. But that it didn't take long to shift into surrender. And that was the biggest lesson of my life and the most scary, because you could go so many different ways with that. And, bringing in homeopathy to support him and me, emotionally. And I feel, again, our children come to teach us, and that whole experience of which, again, I can bring into my practice of living that and feeling that and understanding, of the power of surrender and trust and, what we can learn from each thing, as much as we think it's an obstacle or, why me kind of attitude or why me, which, yeah, we all feel that and we should, but then it's kind of, okay, let's shift the mindset and use this to grow and to expand. And so that was really, really a turning point for our whole family, because now he's doing great, but that was a long couple of years for sure. Absolutely.
There's great purity in the way you've actually so eloquently said what you've just said and shared that. And, this the fact about how patients come back and they say, I can take this longer, or maybe I should take this 3 times a day and not once a day, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
it's so important as homeopaths, because we are not the healer, right? We're the intermediary, we're the liaison, we're the facilitator. Yeah. And you said it very eloquently right at the start of this, that it's a journey with the patient, and it's about us learning from them. I don't think, well, let me put it another way. Everyone has a story to tell, right? You just have to listen.
That's it. And that's what I love. I love it because I think the psychology background and just you're so into their space, into their energy. And yeah, it really is listening to their story and encompassing the essence. I really, it's the essence of all about them. And then, and then being a partner with them and going along for the ride. It really is quite amazing.
You mention on your, often, should I say, on your social media, on your Instagram account, there are some really beautiful slides, which of course I'm liking and as much as I can. But, they are very, very deep and very reflective. And I love that type of thing because personally, it makes you, it's nice to ponder, right? It's nice to reflect and to have time to think about things. And you speak a lot about healing from within and, this power that we all have. How does somebody tap into that power? What are the ways and means? Because nowadays everybody is on, or not everybody, but, most people I speak to, let's make it personal, are on a roller coaster journey. It's a job, it's managing life, family, even a holiday is more stressful than actually it should be, because of the stress of having to travel and to pack and this agenda of, I have to do this and this while you're there. Does it really matter? I mean, what's the baseline here?
Yeah. And you're right. Like that's so hard right now. And really, because I think I've gone through that too, of being go, being a mom of 4 and just, and I think awareness is everything, like that awareness that you can. And then it's like, well, now what do I do? But just to being aware that we're in the driver's seat, as much as we feel we're not, and I have to do this, when you stop back, exactly like you said, do we have to? Like, yes, there's certain roles, and yes, you've got to keep the house going and you have to but aside from that, there are so many choices that we can make. And the power, is to make that choice, which is not easy, but the awareness that we do hold it. And I think being a self-advocate, and I think with the health stuff, standing up and questioning and being curious is so important. And I see so many people so scared to do that, like fearful that they're going to get in trouble or they have to. And I'm like, especially with the medical, system. And it's like, well, they work for us essentially. So you have every right to question and to move, but we're so taught to fear everything, questioning that we can't. So even in life, you have to do this and you have to do that, and going to this certain college, and you have to get your kids in all these activities. And it's really sad for me to see in our current world that it is so busy. And I feel it fuels that disconnect even more. And I feel that anxiety feeling that we all get is a disconnect from our soul, like our heart, what we know, like what we're truly feeling, that visceral, like that innate knowing, and our minds override that. And then it's like a disconnect. And I feel that fuels that uneasiness, dis-ease in the long term, when you're not living your truth and not listening to that internal voice, because you feel you have to go. So again, I don't know if go back to answer your question, it's just quieting for a little bit to hear that. And then again, it is so hard to begin to trust that. And that's where I feel seeing a homeopath or other modalities even to bring in remedies, because I've seen, I'm sure you have too, so many people all of a sudden have aha moments or insights. And of course, they don't attribute it to a remedy, but it is interesting because it is afterwards that they're like, I just decided to do this, or I just saw this differently. And even though physically perhaps they haven't changed, but that awareness kind of like opened up like a new, I had one client say, it looks like I'm looking through rose-colored glasses. Like it just clears the way, the fog a little bit. So I think, there's so many things you can help to support that. But yeah, I think it's just the awareness of what is going on in our world right now, the busyness, and that I feel are purposely being led from ourselves, that inner voice, that inner knowing, that inner powering, that inner healing ability. It's very clear, we're being, encouraged to go outside of us to heal. Like you can't do this without this, like the antibiotic, you need this to, and that's just unfortunately all we've been taught. So we believe that to be true. And that's the scary part. When we start to question it, we're either ridiculed or there's not, and it's again, finding, and like we said earlier, I think homeopathy is starting to really expand, and because people are with again, a lesson and a beautiful thing of what has come on in the past 3-4 years is that ability to perhaps show people what's really happening, or a deeper picture, that we're getting more sick. The irony is we're so connected more than ever through social media, but we're so disconnected more than ever from ourselves and from each other. When you really think about it, like we're connected, like this is amazing. We're talking right now and you're in the UK and I'm in Buffalo, but at the same time, there's so that disconnect of being in person and, just calling up somebody or going for a coffee or, there's just I don't know. It's just an interesting energy for me that I feel it's so disconnected than we've ever been. And that's so very true. And, with the way that we all live, because we're all connected. And like you said, it's such a beautiful thing that look where you are and look at the time zones and look where I am. And yet we're connecting. And for those listening to the podcast, we're able to see each other, of course, via Zoom. And it's so nice, and that connection is so good and so important, but it's almost become a very a bubble like society, or it's certainly heading that way, that people do feel very comfortable living in a bubble, and there's a lot of anxiety around socializing. Now we know perhaps what the causations are and the reasons, of course, but we're sociable animals, right? We need to talk to one another. And I've found something which is quite detrimental and is causing health anxiety in people. I'm sure you can share your ideas on this and thoughts and experiences, is that people now going out have become very self-aware. And they're thinking, oh my God, my hair, or someone might say, why are you wearing this? And little things which in the grand scheme of everything in creation mean nothing. Because, I saw this, I won't mention the social media platform, but it was a really important, very informative reel. And it spoke about the fact that there's no need to be anxious because, and this is going to sound really strange, but the reel ended with saying everyone's going to die, right? We're all going to pass away. So there's no need because we're to have such anxiety, because we're all going to go one day. We all have to go, right? That's a fact. And why do you want to burden yourself? I know it's not easy, of course, but I'm just relaying about the reel. But it made me think and ponder that why do you want to burden yourself with little things? They won't matter in the grand scheme of things. You do the best that you can in this life, do everything good, do the most righteous things you can, be a good person, give back, give. That's all it's about, right? It's not take, it's give back. And you'll have a fulfilling life, because, and I know we're going slightly off tangent here, but certainly on a deathbed, you don't think about, oh, my house and my cars and, what about the money in the bank and stuff like this. What you actually think about is, have I been okay with people, and have I left something nice for them to talk to me about? Because they can either love you when you've gone and miss you and pray for you, or they can say, well, thank God he's gone. You're right. And
Oh,
you're
sorry,
right.
that was very, very blunt, but I
No,
was
but
just
you're right.
encapsulating that video that I saw, and it just brought
Yeah.
home the fact that on a subtle level, that irrespective of our weaknesses, I have so many
Yeah.
weaknesses, but you've got to strive, right? And hope
Yeah.
is a great thing here. You've got to hope for the best for each day, right?
Yeah. And you're right. And I think of that as I'm getting older and I'm like, I'm feeling, what am I holding? Because again, that fear, like we have so much fear as like self-expression. I feel we're such a suppressed world right now. And as when there's a lot of suppression growing up, what that can do and how important that is in homeopathy, physically and mental, emotionally. And our world right now is just so suppressed, our voices and who we are, like you just said, as much as it seems like we're free and can express, I feel it's getting worse because there's so much expectations on our children. I just see it in clients and just in the world my own kids are in. And it's so hard because I don't agree with it and it feels like icky, but it's almost like that's just the way it is. So you got to do it anyway to keep going, kind of thing, like with sports, or it's just so intense now. And there's so much suppression of children and their voices and, because there's lack of play, like even in schools, there's less playing and outside time and just free. And it's just like we're being molded or being told, and we just lose all sense of self. And that, to me, again, going back to like living homeopathically, how I feel what we're talking about, as much as it seems like we may have gone off, it's really the philosophy of homeopathy and living and what that means. I feel there's such a powerful connection. And because the philosophy deep down is really, the core of, again, what I'm trying to get at. But self-expression is just so important. And like you just said about going back to the dying, I'm like, yeah, what if I'm gone tomorrow? Would I be happy that I held back out of fear of what people think? And you're talking about my posts, and I really do love, I'll just get these thoughts, and I do think like that. And, and trying to keep it simple at the same time, because a lot of people, they might not get it, or, I don't want to go too wordy and all of that. But there is so much more. And yeah, we're really truly holding ourselves back, but then we want to blame all the outside noise because of that. So again, that awareness of really stepping into our power and quieting all this noise. Like, I just feel there's so much noise out there that keeps us, stuck. So it's like, again, we're stuck inside ourselves, but yet, I don't know. It's just interesting to me, our world right now.
Yeah, definitely interesting. That takes me on to family time, actually, and how having quality family time can be so important and productive to doing good together and individually as well. And nowadays, it's hard to find family time, quality family time. Again, going off slightly tangent, but there's a drama called Blue Bloods from the States, with Tom Selleck in there, and it's a generation of police officers and detectives, right? And in every single episode, and this is the 11th season, they always show this scene where on a Sunday the family will always get together and they'll talk about things, and they'll have a laugh, and they'll talk about serious things as well, and maybe shed a few tears here and there, but they spend quality time together having Sunday dinner. Do you know that? Even though it's in a drama, right, a series, but it paints 1,000 words, because the importance of family time is critical now. And even though for somebody listening, you might think, oh my God, but how am I going to be able to do this? It's like with everything in life. It's like when you started out, isn't it? Or I started out, and your first patient, and you think, oh my God, and 3 patients later, 10, 20, 100,000, 2,000, whatever, things become easier and easier, don't they? And don't you think family time is so important nowadays, to be able to connect with one another? Because collectively you can do so much great, right? And so much goodness.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that's, again, what I'm seeing. And just, people are eating in the car on the way to practice and this, and it's just so busy again. And that it's literally disconnected. You're not a whole, again, which I love bringing it back to homeopathy. It's the whole and the energy of the whole, and how what we're talking about is fuel for future dis-ease, because we're so, and then we get these physical ailments because we're living in such a busy world and not stopping, and such disconnect within the home. There's with all the electronics, and like even when you are together, everyone's staring at a screen, or everyone's just so disconnected, and then that disconnect from inside ourselves and how 10 years later, 1 year later, 4 months later could fuel a physical ailment or a chronic disease. And how that, again, how profound what we do and this medicine to really encompass all of what we're just talking about. Because that, whereas you go to a doctor, like they're looking at purely the physical body and the physical symptom and nothing about what we're just talking about. And I think, again, the core of shifting the awareness and the collective, again, which I do feel many are going back to homesteading and family and homeschooling, and it is beautiful. So again, what has happened is creating a little bit of a movement in that. But yeah, I think family time and that connection, again, it's all about connection to self and connection within the home. And but yeah, it is like, well, how can I do that? I'm busy. But again, stopping to think, why am I busy? Like, why am I doing this? Like, is it because like, I don't want my neighbor to think I'm not good or, and it's like, we lose sense of why we're doing things. And I think bringing it back to that inner knowing and discerning what is good for us is so important.
I was speaking to a very eminent homeopath. We were having a conversation pre podcast, and they said something very fascinating, and it was to do with just being overwhelmed all the time and pulled and pushed everywhere. And they said, oh, I switch off from time to time. And my question naturally was, well, how do you do that? And they said, by thinking that I can. That was literally the response, because I can.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually matter at the end of the day. For one's own health and well-being, mental health, emotional health, physical health, just switch off and give yourself time. Be productively selfish, I suppose is the word.
Yeah.
It's so important, right?
Yeah. And I think that's, especially when I'm working with moms, again, we think it's selfish when how important it is as a mom, as a caregiver, any caregiver, any person, boundaries. And that is so hard. And that's something I have just learned with my business and practice. Like you just said, that overwhelm and burnout that I really have felt but I was aware of that. So that's the awareness, like instead of keep going and keep burning out, and then you're on and then you're getting all these physical things. It's like, I stopped and I did, and I cut back my schedule. I closed for the summer, and because I want to be though. So again, I can. And fortunately, some people might think, well, I can't because I have to. But again, there are areas that you can, because, you just have to be aware of why you're doing it, what's propelling it, and the fuel behind your actions. And again, that exerts, and it's not selfish. And we have been taught to believe if we, treat ourselves, like I encourage, a lot of times I want to see the mom first before the child, because that energy and that powerful connection is so profound with behavioral issues or and then the mom is highly anxious. So once we settle that and help support the mom, the home shifts. And I just had a follow-up yesterday, and she's like, my home is just so much more peaceful because I'm working with the mom. And that is just so powerful when we realize it's the most less, like for our children, for the ones around us, it's the most least, like that's what we need to do. So we can empower those around us. And we can, and you're right. And it seems so hard. And when you think about it, it's us, like we decide, but yet we feel we can't. So again, that alone is start to question why, like, why can't I just do this and say, I can shut it down.
The importance for being grounded now is more important than ever before, isn't it? To stay grounded, to be simple, isn't it? To be simple, right? There's no need to almost, and I'm talking not, of course, about everybody, because there is a lot of suffering out there, and some even moms are holding up 3 to 4 jobs even, and it's amazing, and God bless them for that effort that they're doing, to keep afloat and to keep giving food on the table. And it's tough, but I'm talking about the other side of it, where people are relatively, let's say, comfortable, but then there's always this drive for the next big thing. But it's just nice, isn't it, just to be simple sometimes and say, I got it. I have a car, for example, or we're able to eat, even if it's 1 or 2 meals a day. That it goes back to gratitude, right? It just being humble and being grateful for everything that you have, right? So important, isn't it? Never look up. I was taught never look up. Always look down. Never look up at the next stage. Always look down. That how fortunate you are, and be grateful and pay back by serving humanity, right? By giving back to people as much as you physically can.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And just to point to, like you said, the moms or people, anybody that you have 3 jobs and you have kids, and yeah, there is so much. And even then support, can be there, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is so much suffering, but then you're right. There's so many of us that are just going. And it's always the next thing, like you just said, because I was just thinking about this the other day about writing, and I love to write and explore all these things that we're never present, wherever there's always something, the next thing. So then we're never truly present because we're always looking ahead because it's never enough. And again, that's a disconnect, when we're just keep going instead of being in the grounding and just being. And that's the hardest thing. And it's such the most simple thing when you think about it. Like, we don't need anything. You just be in your body, in grounded. And that is so hard for people to do.
Krista, you have a particular passion for helping children with their chronic health and behavioral problems. And behavioral problems include, of course, emotional imbalances or disturbances, mental health conditions, and of course, women's health. So do tell us more about how you go about that and what's sort of involved and what you sort of support them with.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the connection between moms. So I offer a lot of times, and I encourage mom and child together, and either do the mom first, because again, child, especially with behavior, well, any chronic issue, that the stress being a mom, I understand that, like how it's so hard. You feel so out of sorts when you see your child suffering. There's nothing worse, than seeing your child either with a mental, emotional issue, physical, or they're sick all the time. So to support the mom, it's so important. So to offer that as well, so you're in a space and have strength. So physically you can withstand the care you need to give, and mental, emotional is huge. So they can feel that, and that vibrates outward to that calmness that you can feel. And children too. Yeah. I see, again, back to that suppression and what's the expectations in our current world. It's just unfortunate and sad to see all these, diagnoses happening of focus and attention, and, but then you look around again, stop to think, is it really the child? Or look around how different it was from 20 years ago, from 5 years ago, even. It just keeps escalating, and the pressure and the academic, expectations. And even in my own daughter, I'm seeing them push like stuff that they did in grade 6 down to grade 4. And it's like, why? So, and then they go through it like this, like super fast. And then they don't go out to play as much. And there's no imaginary, and the creativity is being lost. And then all of a sudden, here, my kid can't sit down and fix them. So my passion is to have open that. And sometimes, yes, there are, as you know, like clear things and aggression, and which again, you look at the whole picture of what is going on in the home. First of all, the energy within the home, past traumas, if there's divorce, and of course, looking at the, past, during pregnancy and even before. But those behavior issues, just to stop to look around and really what's going on. And is it really like, what if we shifted a few things? And again, well, like I can't homeschool my kid. I can't do that. And so that's, again, the conflict. And it's so tough right now because people don't have other options, and they have to put their child in traditional school. And then they're being told, well, they're not learning, and they're behind, and they're this and that. And then, it's just like a never ending, train of medications and all of that. So my passion is kind of to encourage that, for one. Second of all, just the overuse of medications on our children is really, really frustrating for me, with what I've gone through too, and to understand, to educate. It's really about educating the mom to take power into their home. And, even giving a fever, we're just taught right away to give it Tylenol and, and all these things. And it's like, but understand why, like what's going on in the body. So to really empower moms to look at, even if it's an acute issue, which typically is rooted from something chronic, and then to explain that too, and not be on lifelong medications. And I want children to thrive and to self-express, and, so just really, yeah, it's just so important for our future, and to educate the mom. Well, and father, but yeah, typically it's the mom, that's coming. So
what's your understanding on the rise of mental health conditions in youngsters, children now, even as 10 years of age, are experiencing mental health conditions, and these include social anxiety generally amongst people, away from people, and the need or the inability to express themselves properly, to engage. Procrastination seems to be on the rise. What's your insight?
Yeah. I mean, I think for one, electronics, social media devices, because I just see it in my own family and my kids. And it's like, again, it's hard because as a mom, I'm like, oh, I can't stand these things. But yet that's just our world. You know, you can't, you got to, again, adapt. But within that, and it's so tough. But I think, yeah, there's so much connection in that device that we're being so led outside of ourselves. We're disconnected literally, but yet we're in another world. Like it doesn't even exist. Like it's real, but it's not real. Like it's not our current world. So I think that it's just so much confusion. I think that you're in this virtual world, essentially, you know, checking and then comparing, like you said, like my hair and this, and as you know, people post all the wonderful things and how beautiful things are. And that's what you compare. And even as grownups, you know, and women in general, seeing these things. But yeah, for kids, I think that is really a deep thing because they have access to so much and we can't control. We're not sure even what they're even watching and seeing half the time. And as you know, you can find anything and a lot of things are not appropriate. And that just can fuel something, perhaps a susceptibility that's already there. And then what's going on in the home, boundaries. I think boundaries are so important for everybody, for kids. And I feel there's just so much lack of boundaries, that there's no structure, but even though there is structure because we're constantly doing. So it's almost, again, a conflict that here you have to do this. Like we're so overscheduled. Our kids are so overscheduled. Again, no time to be matched with this immersion into this electronic world. It's just a setup for, no self-expression, no creativity, no freedom, just to be bored. Like kids, I'm bored. Like they can't be bored anymore. And I think as a parent, we fuel that too, because for some reason we're becoming taught, like we have to entertain our kids all the time. We have to find something to do, or, you know, and it's just, why can't they just go on their bike and go ride? But again, no one feels safe to do that anymore. So it's just unfortunate, I guess, the fear. I think fear is so big, fueling in the parents themselves, and fear of even in the health world, which could be a whole other topic. You know, you can't do this, the EMFs, this, and nebules and parasites and the ego. And it's just, there's so much fear. You don't know what to do. And I think the kids feel that. Like, I think kids, like pets, like we all are born as a pure energetic, we just feel and know. And then we slowly, not that we lose it, it gets buried. I think we get layered and layered and layered. And that fuels that disconnect, which again fuels future disease and chronic illness. But yeah, to go back to answer, I don't know if I really answered your question on the kids. I think it just becomes so layered, you know, with all this noise and the electronics and disconnect. And because the parents now too are in that world too, it's tough. It's just, and the expectations, there's so much expectations and not enough like free time to be yourself. And you don't know how to be yourself. Or like, I don't even know who I am.
I wonder when I was growing up, and now at my ripe old age, don't worry, I'm not going to share how old I am, but I'm definitely older than I was last year, certainly. But I have memories. I have memories of falling off my bike. You know, I have memories of going swimming and riding the bicycle, traveling long distances with my parents in the car. We're going somewhere, picnics and all the good things, right? The things that you do. So I often worry, what are the modern children going to have memories about? Because the only memories that sometimes we can see, I'm not saying this is everyone, but you do see it around, right? Is that my memory was that, you know, I used to have an Instagram account, or I was on TikTok, and really, I'm genuinely saying, what are the memories? Where are they? Right. You know, where are the celebrations and the parties and the fun and the get-togethers and the Sunday dinners and whatever it is that, or the going out bowling, going to a bowling alley, or even going to watch a film together, you know? That's it.
And no one goes to watch movies anymore. And that's really back to, which I just had this conversation. So my kids are really aware because we discuss this all the time. But my 15-year-old, he just seems, because I have a 21-year-old and she kind of, and my 19-year-old, and they grew up more without electronics. They didn't really start to come until they were past that. And I see a very, very big difference with him. And then I have a 10-year-old too. A very big difference with their fidgetiness and their, you know, sitting still, and because they were kind of brought into this, but it's instant gratification. Like that's what I remember I was just sharing all this. You had to wait till a Friday night at 8:00 to watch your show. and now it's just like, boom, you can sit and watch 5 episodes in one shot. And then that's keeping them from going to play because there's just so much instant gratification or going and you had to get on your bike and go knock on a door to see if someone could play or pick up a phone. And now it's like, just text like, hey, or they can check their location of their friends. It's like, well, no, they're not.
Oh, that's creepy.
It's so creepy. Yeah. And he's like, oh, look, my friend's here. And you can see that. I'm like, this is creepy. But yeah, the instant gratification is just everything. Like, boom, you've got what you want, and and I think that leads to laziness, which I hate to put it that strongly, but kind of is. Like, no one wants to work. No one like to put that hard work in. It's like our kids are just like looking up to go write an essay. Do you remember going to the library? You had to take out 10 books, log them home, look it up. And, it was so much, or even when I began repertorizing all by hand, like that's when I started. Now, clearly you plug it in and you're done in a minute. You can find what you're looking for, but just that is gone now. And they don't even know what that is to do all that. And I mean, and even my son too, because I was like a young teen in the 80s or whatever, like 10 in the 80s and stuff. So I'm like, he's like, I wish I grew up in the 80s, especially watching like some shows because they love 80s music. And I'm like, it really is. It was such a great, great time. It was just the style, the music, and just the freedom. And he's like, I wish I lived then, because I think he feels like he can feel that. And I think that's really a deep awareness in him that he sees, that this disconnect, in our world.
I love the 80s. I'm sure you probably are aware that I do, because the backing soundtracks I usually use are from the 80s.
It's my favorite.
I love it,
I love the 80s. Yeah.
It was clean, pure, wasn't it?
It's just such upbeat music. And even he's listening to the music, because now the music is just so like low vibe. And he's like, music was just, you feel so good. I'm like, you do. It's just so fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, on a slightly lighter note, what hobbies do you take part in? Now, I ask a lot of the guests on the podcast about their hobbies, and I've had everything from walking, hiking, plate spinning, pottery, reading, gardening, and so many other things, which are quite similar, but very sort of different. In fact, I had recently a cello player, so that was a hobby, playing the cello. So do share what you do in your downtime and what you get up to as such.
Yeah. I mean, I love to exercise. I've always loved, training and physical, like running, yoga. So I definitely will be doing that. Reading, absolutely. And again, talking about the busyness, I'm so passionate about reading, what we read about and all that, but then trying just to get to a fictional summer book. And that's been, again, the awareness has been hard for me, just to sit down and read something fun. And so really that awareness, I'm pushing that way. So just light summer reading, painting. I just started, not that I don't paint, I'm not a paint, but I enjoy that. And so that I just got my daughter and I, some watercolors. I'm like, I think, that connection to self, what I'm really trying to slow down. And it was so beautiful to do, sit down, and it was so meditative and just lost in the moment. And so that I really feel is my new hobby. I'm going to start doing that more. I really enjoy that, even though it's nothing to be framing and hanging up probably, but just the whole, again, self-expression and just being flow and cooking. I love to cook. So I like to be in the kitchen.
Here's an idea. Some watercolors, right, of a bottle of arnica and belladonna and causticum. And honestly, they put them up on your slides, just a nice watercolor of it. I haven't seen those before anyway. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
I'm notoriously bad at giving ideas. But it was an idea and I had to share it, hey? Krista, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. So if anyone does want to connect, do give out your website.
Yeah, it's just KristaRivet.com. So very simple. And all the information's there too with, about me and booking. And then Instagram, it's KristaRivet.Homeopathy. And
brilliant. Great. It's a great pleasure to have you on. And I hope in the near future you will come back and we can talk some more. It's been such a delight. Thank you so much.
I would love that. And thank you so much for having me.
I do hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. Please do support the show by clicking follow on my socials. Remember, the more exposure the podcast receives, the better for homeopathy around the world. You can find me on Instagram by searching for @like_treatslike, and on both Facebook and TikTok by searching for @like_treatslike. So let's promote the voice of homeopathy on radio and podcast around the world together. Don't forget to visit me online at www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast tab. Here you'll be able to see all the guests that have joined me on the show so far, and of course you can stream on demand the latest episode to your mobile, tablet or PC. Until next time, stay safe and take care.